Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated Legacy action. Today we are trying an experiment that goes into the history of Legacy, and that history is whenever there's a new card that looks pretty good, smash it into Delver and see how it goes. And that's exactly what we're doing today with Leyline Dowser. This is a card that's impressed me quite a lot. It's 2 mana, pay 1, tap it, mill a card. You put an instant or sorcery milled this way into your hand, and it's got some other text that we're not really caring about right now in terms of untapping it. This is just going to mill cards, and if there are instants or sorceries, we can get them back. If there's a Leyline or something in play, it mills the card, and even though it goes into exile, you still get to put it into your hand, because it's not conditional on being in the graveyard, it's just one of the cards that has been milled that you get. So why is this a good fit for Delver? Well, Delver used to play Expressive Iteration as a bit of card advantage, and this kind of slots into that role. It's obviously very good with the large amount of instants and sorceries we have in our deck. We also have things like Ponders, Portent even, Brainstorm, lots of ways of setting up the top of our deck to make sure this is just drawing us bonus cards. And putting cards on our graveyard is excellent when we're playing Dragon's Rage Channeler and Murktide Regent. So this seems like a pretty natural fit to Delver, although it is kind of 3 mana to get it up and running because you want to at least be able to get activation off the first time you play this. So it's kind of our like backup mid-game plan if we're doing our Delvery stuff and doesn't quite get there. But this card has impressed me, and let's see how it fares in the shell. We've basically got everything you'd expect. We've got our counter spells, even a Force of Negation in the main. We've got a bunch of interaction, mostly red removal spells. We've got Borrower just stuck in there. Borrower is a bit awkward because it doesn't draw off the Leyline, but we can still enjoy the flexibility of this card, which is very good. Yeah, we got the normal threat base you'd expect to see in a deck like this, and we got the cantrips you'd expect to see, along with 4 Wastelands, a single Thundering Falls because we're just straight up blue-red here. We do have 1 island, which allows us to cast things like Hydroblast from the sideboard and Blue Blast underneath a Blood Moon. So that's usually the only time we're going to want to fetch this. But it is an option we have available to us. Moving over to the sideboard, we've got some Artifact Hate, we've got some Graveyard Hate. We've got Counterbalance, which is good for stuff like the Mirror. We've got a Force of Negation to help against combo matchups. The Blue Blast we mentioned before. Price of Progress is how we're going to be trying to tackle the sort of Landsy style matchups. And we've got some Pyroblast, which can kill opposing Murktide as well as a bunch of other stuff. And just a Vapor Snag is a nice little catch-all that also gets triggered by this Dowser, so we get to draw it. So yeah, that's the deck. If you were missing having Expressive Iteration in Legacy, maybe Leyline Dowser is the new Expressive Iteration for us. Who knows? But let's find out. So remember to like and subscribe, and let's take another trip down Leyline Dowser Avenue, this time with Blue-Red Delver. Our opening hand here, if Wastelands are good, this is going to be good, but otherwise we're going to feel a little bit behind for a lot of this game. I think we need to have some kind of threat or plan. So I'm going to mulligan this one. Alright, this seems much better. We can keep this and we can start doing Delver things. What are we sending back here? We have 2 Ponders. We have 2 Lightning Bolts. I think we're going to ditch a Ponder. And then we have the Brainstorm to push back the Lightning Bolts. I would like to find a land in our first turn. That makes me feel a little bit safer about this keep. But our deck does operate on pretty thin margins. Alright, so our opponent's got a Delver and a Bauble. So they're going to use this Bauble in our turn so they can have 2 looks at the Delver. And they can, once they know what the card is, they can stack it the right way around in terms of the 2 triggers. So they can draw the card if it's not going to flip the Delver. That's an excellent draw. Let's go and get ourselves a Volcanic Island and copy our opponent. We'd also like to get Delver. So we've got the Lightning Bolt we can use next turn around a Daze to clear their Delver. So target themselves with the Bauble. Let's see which way they stack these. Okay, so it's not a guaranteed flip. Oh. Alright, no flip. A nice one for us. A Wasteland. Are they just going to start attacking our mana? They are. And a Lightning Bolt. Yep, that's a pretty solid turn from our opponent there. We get to clap back with a Lightning Bolt on their Delver. A Leyline Dowser. Well, hopefully we can do something with that. So we're going to get our Volcanic Island here. So we could just Ponder. I think that is probably reasonable when we try and bolt this around a Daze. Let's get this Ponder going. So we secured some more land drops. That's really all we're interested in. So we're definitely drawing 1 more of these. I don't think we want to be doing the whole Wasteland shenanigans in this matchup. So we're just going to stack them like this. And just get ourselves 3 total lands that we can operate on, which is what we need to make our Leyline Dowser function. So we're looking to try and trade 1 for 1 as best we can. No flip again. Is that another Wasteland? Could be. Ponder from our opponent, sure. So we know they've got at least 1 card that isn't an instant or a sorcery. So it could be that Flooded Strand. It could be 2. The Wasteland might have been something they just had in their hand. But I think we can't factor that into our calculations. Alright, another Delver. So we'll take just 1 from this. And we'll draw ourselves this Volcanic Island that we knew about. Let's try and bolt one of these. So we can go and get a Thundering Falls, or we can try and get another Lightning Bolt, depending on what our opponent reveals. An Unholy Heat. Okay, we don't care about that one too much. That's not the game we're sort of playing here. So we're going to take 3. I think it's best to try and bolt this around a Daze. But if our opponent plays another threat this turn, maybe we have to bolt end step and try and fish for another threat, another answer. But we'll see what this turn holds for our opponent. Like a Murktide. Okay, it feels like our opponent's playing a Murktide here. Right, let's crack this. Go Volcanic Island. So a Daze will work here. Let's try and fire off this Brainstorm. And what have we got? We got instant sorcery creature land. So this Unholy Heat will do enough damage in theory. I think that's a reasonable keep there. So we put this, we put the Dowser, and then the Portent's probably fine. Okay, so we can allow this Murktide Regent to happen. It's only going to be, what, at 6? Yep, so that does get cleaned up. I can count. That's always a bonus. So we have a Dowser on top. Do we want the Dowser in the graveyard, or do we want to use that to sort of grind some advantage here? I think we're just casting our Unholy Heat here. Instant sorcery creature land. That is 4. Alright, we've got a Force of Will. That does change things slightly. So now I don't think we have time to be using the Leyline Dowser. So I think this is play Channeler, Lightning Bolt this to save some life for us. We'll surveil this Dowser away, and then next turn we can try and Portent and find an answer to this Murktide Regent. So we've got another Unholy Heat we can find. We've also got the Borrower. Both of them will stop this from doing anything. They could just hold this back and just gobble up our Channeler. I think it's best for them if they just swing away here and have lethal next turn. We've got something like a Daze that could jam us up, or a main deck Force of Negation they can just hold up. But we get to see a lot of cards with Portent. Seeking of the Beast. A Daze and an Unholy Heat. Alright, so we're just going to Unholy Heat our guy straight up. And they've got a Daze that we have to play around now. They cast that just so they can put it into their graveyard. Tag ourselves, because that's how Portent works. We get to look at the cards. Let's do some surveilling. A Lightning Bolt. We would need double Lightning Bolt. I don't think we can keep this. There's another Lightning Bolt on top here. We're going to shuffle this, because this does not do anything for us. Let's just play this out so we can pay around whatever. Our creature has to attack. A Ponder. Nope, we're dead. Okay, let's go to sideboarding. So this is the matchup where you want things like Counterbalance. Vapor Snag is pretty interesting here, as are the Pyroblasts. Also, Red Blast, pretty good too. Force of Will, not really necessary, neither is the Force of Negation. I do like having the Dowsers here. That feels like a way that we can go over the top of our opponent. We've got 2 cuts to find to make this work. I like all the Bolts and Unholy Heats. I do like the Dowsers because these matchups can end up quite grindy. But then that leaves us in an awkward position of what we're cutting. And I think it might be Wastelands. We don't really want to be playing the Wasteland game in this matchup. So I think we're going to board out a couple of Wastelands here. There is an argument for keeping in some Forces, because it's just a nice sort of like catch-all. But I don't think you can afford to throw away resources in that sort of fashion. I'll keep this. So we kind of get to do what our opponent did last turn with the turn 1 Delver with the Bauble. Alternatively, we can play the Channeler and get some better card selection. I think it's probably the Channeler, isn't it? We don't have to fire off the Bauble, we can just play it and then use it next turn for the Delver. A Ponder. I think we're just trying to fill up our graveyard so we can get our Murktide online as soon as possible. We could crack this to try and mess with our opponent's first thing, but I don't think that's where I want to be. I think we can just use this to make sure that our pressure is more reliable than our opponent's. There's a Bauble from our opponent, but they didn't have a Channeler, so point to us, I suppose. They targeted us with the Mishra's Bauble. They're just going down that Wasteland plan. So they probably know the top card of our library isn't a land, which means I think we're supposed to take a look at our opponent's top card and then draw a bonus card here. Yeah, so we were very much rewarded for doing that. We cast this pre-combat, because if our opponent wants to counterspell it, we'll go into our graveyard and pump our Channeler. But yeah, so our opponent doing the Bauble and then Wastelanding us showed us that we needed to crack our Bauble. So it's just slight little edges like that you can take from what your opponent's doing and work out what you would do in a similar situation. Alright, there's their Delver that we knew about, so we can cross that off the list. See what our Dragon's Rage Channeler gets up to. I don't really want this Murktide, but it is what it is. Definitely attacking with this. We're okay trading these. Am I okay trading a Dragon's Rage Channeler? I don't think so. If these trade, it pumps our Channeler. Right, they're going for the trade. That gives us a bigger creature. Let's replace our Delver. And let's take them off of a mana. I don't really like doing the whole Wasteland plan, but we've got 2 threats in play and our opponent's got no permanents. So maybe when we go on the draw, we can board out 2 Dazes and bring back the 2 Wastelands in. And the main thing Wasteland gets used for in this matchup is to delay a Murktide Regent for a turn. And I think just having actual answers to things in like Blast and stuff is most of the time going to be a better option. What would you like to do, Delver? So now we've got 6 damage coming in every turn with a bit of Daze protection. Now Daze isn't the best protection in the world, but it's okay. I will fire it off given much anything here, because this allows us to surveil. Right, here in the graveyard, we're not after that just yet. That might have been bait to try and get rid of our Daze. So the question is, do I play this Volcanic out into a potential Wasteland? It does mean that we have an out to drawing Murktide Regent. I think we will play this out. So having the Murktide Regent as a thing we can deploy next turn, when that's all of our hand, makes some amount of sense. Let's see a Murktide from our opponent here. I guess not. Could be looking at something like a Borrower. A Lightning Bolt, sure. We're going to have another Bolt. We're going to have a Blast. An Unholy Heat. So this really incentivizes us to try and play this Murktide Regent this turn. Get rid of some lands. We've got a 5/5. Our opponent can make a bigger one because they've got more instants in their graveyard. We could have made this smaller and then made a second one and tried to grow this. The only issue with that is if we get Wastelanded off, then we just got a smaller Murktide when we need to be clocking. And we don't want to play something that dies to Lightning Bolt, so we could have just taken 1 and made a 4/4. There's a Wasteland. We're probably going to be taking off of our red sources here. Yep. Just going to get a Volk. Make a guy. Doesn't get to be very exciting here. We'll take 2 of the creatures. 3 of the creatures, I guess. And yeah, so we're still leaving 3 different types in the graveyard, but we only have a 3/3. A 2-mana 3/3 flyer isn't a terrible rate at the end of the day, but it's very far behind what Murktide Regent can do. Ponder from our opponent. We're just trying to dodge like land Murktide. Lightning Bolt is obviously a bit of a problem for us when our Murktide Regent is so small. Yep, there it is. Okay, deck. Can you help us out? A Ponder. I will take a Ponder. A Brainstorm, a Daze, and a Lightning Bolt. This Daze is pretty bad. The Lightning Bolt might be okay. It'll help fuel our little friend. Our opponent's got 1 card in hand. Like, this does give us a Murktide Regent in the very near future. So I think we'll just do that, and we can Brainstorm on our opponent's turn just to grow our Murktide a little bit. If our opponent plays a Murktide this turn, that's where the trouble is. We need to fade this turn. A Delver's Secrets. That is going to be smaller than our Murktide Regent. Uh-oh. This is great for us, though, because they've played into this Daze that we have. So, put this on top. And then this. No, we don't need all of these things, do we? Put this on top, then this. We know our opponent doesn't have any cards. Let's just Daze this. I should have played these 2 spells the other way around. It's more important to get our Murktide here than it is to worry about what our opponent's doing. Land is probably the easiest one of these to get in our graveyards. Alright, so we've got the last Murktide in our deck. Our opponent is living off the top. We have an answer for the one thing they have in play. They didn't find an instant or sorcery, but they might have found another creature. Okay. Top card of our library is a land. It's not the most exciting. Bash for 6. This is half our opponent's life total. If the Delvers aren't flipping, then we can save the Lightning Bolt. So we'll see what they reveal here before they draw it. A Brainstorm. Brainstorm is a good card. Okay, so now we're saving this Lightning Bolt so that we can blow away one of their blockers if they're doing 1 attack, 1 block. Or if they go for a double block, we can also do that. This does expose us potentially to a Daze, but we should be able to play around that given the fact we've got a load of stuff here. Forceful blue card could be a slight issue. But they've got to put 2 of these card backs, actually, haven't they? So they're only going to have 1 card in hand. So they shouldn't be able to interfere with what we're doing unless they've got a blast. Like a Hydroblast would be very good here. Okay, just a land. What attacks? Okay, they're going for the double block. Counterbalance is pretty strong here. So whatever happens, they have to put the Delver underneath the bus here anyway. So we may as well kill one of these, attack for 6. This has to die to keep themselves alive. We drop the Counterbalance. And our opponent's got 1 turn to come up with something. And they're going to shuffle this card off the top of their library, most likely, with this fetch land. And then they're going to... Okay, they haven't fetched yet. Okay, now they're fetching. That makes me think they don't have a Thundering Falls in their deck. which is pretty reasonable considering they're running the Questing Druid and they need to fit that Tropical Island in there somewhere. Alright, Counterbalance, do your thing. Unholy Heat counters it, and we win the game off the Counterbalance trigger. Excellent. So, our opponent won when they were on the play. We won when we were on the play, and now our opponent gets to go on the play again. Awkward, but there it is. Let's get another Wasteland back in there. Do we want anything else? Want to do anything differently here? The Dazes do not feel great here. I think I'm going to take out another Daze, like I said I would, just for the Wasteland. We're on the draw. It just gives us more land to operate with. We're trying to get to our Leyline Dowser endgame. Okay, this hand seems pretty good. Just a classic Delvering. Play the DRC. Delver, get the Bauble going. Set up the Delver next turn. We've got Unholy Heat to remove something. Or DRC. I think we are best off playing our own DRC out rather than trying to play catch up here. Also makes us dig towards the draw that we require. But if our opponent has a Daze, they might point at the Channeler anyway. We'll have to wait and see, I suppose. A Brainstorm. Right, let's play the Channeler. Let's play a Bauble. Lightning Bolt. I would very much like to keep that Lightning Bolt. We'll pass. Getting Wastelanded here would obviously be a pain. I think we're probably going to crack this anyway, because we want to know if there's another land down. Because if we can get 2 coloured lands, we get to play Unholy Heat and potentially a Delver. So they've managed to activate their Channeler. So we know what our opponent's probably doing with this Polluted Delta. They're just going to shuffle their card away. We'll take a look and see what they don't want from their hand. Lands. Okay, so wastelanding our opponent is unlikely to be useful. That's what that information tells us. Alright, so let's Lightning Bolt this Channeler. Mystic Sanctuary, that can go into the graveyard. There's going to be 3 of our types here. We're going to see a Blast. Could be. I'm not expecting anything like a Spell Pierce. He's just going to bolt our creature. They're blasting our Lightning Bolt. Alright. Let's crash for 1. Don't want to see Wasteland into Murktide Regent. That would be a bad time for us. Alright, no Wasteland. We just take our 3 from the Channeler. Could be a Murktide still though. And they've got... Okay. Wasn't the Murktide. We have our own Murktide. I think I want to cast a Brainstorm here. This is a great Pyroblast target, but our opponent doesn't necessarily know that. But I might be going for it anyway. Seeking of the Beast. A Delver and a Ponder. Okay, so I don't think we're about this Leyline Dowser life right now. Although maybe 1 is okay, and we keep 1 Murktide. So we'll crack this. Go and get ourselves a Volk. Are we just trying to kill this? But that is our Murktide Regent killing spell. But we do need to deal with this at some point. So we've got... This only deals 2 damage actually. It's not going to kill it, right? We don't have enough types in the graveyard. Which means we're probably casting a Delver of Secrets. If this gets countered for some reason, then it will turn our Channeler into a 3/3. So we cast this before attacks. I don't think wastelanding our opponent is very useful here. I'd rather have this mana to sink into the Leyline Dowser in coming turns. Once we sort of butt heads with all of our stuff, then the Leyline Dowser can run away with the game. But we do need to get to that situation. Our opponent is likely going to be cautious in terms of killing our creatures. Like killing our Delver, they're just going to go after the Channeler. Alright, they've got a Wasteland. They are going after one of our lands. There's the Delver that we knew about. It's not a Murktide. And a Ponder as well. So we can cast this Ponder, and that will give us a 3/3 Channeler. And maybe find the land to point a removal spell at something. Let's see what our Delver flips. Wasteland. Not in love with that draw. Are we wanting to trade off Channelers here? If we are, then we hold this guy back. I think we Ponder here. No, we don't need this Counterbalance right now. We need to beat the stuff on board. Blue Blast, Red Blast, and a Murktide. I'll take these. We do need that other land is the only issue here. We're going to go any order and shuffle. Those cards are good, but we are looking for mana sources. So this will attack. We'll try and trade off this Delver. So we can double Wasteland to try and take our opponent off of Murktide Regent. I don't think that's where I want to be. I think I'm going to jam this Leyline Dowser. Get another Surveil. Brainstorm is a useful card, but I don't actually want this right now. We're just digging to lands. And I don't want to play things that we can cast that get hit by lands, if that makes sense. Sorry, I don't want to play things to try and find lands that can get hit by other spells. We don't get to cast any, we don't get to pay for this Daze. Okay. So we want to be able to make sure that we have a Murktide Regent that is bigger than our opponents. If we can get the 8/8 Murktide, then we'll be okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're 1 shy. We've got 2 spells we can cast in hand. They're going to come in for 4. That'll put us dead to double bolt. Alright, they've got an island as well as a Volk in hand. This is going to be the Murktide. This is going to be a very big Murktide. So the plan of trying to take them off of Murktide might have been the correct one there. So it's going to be an 8-8. Yep. And our DRC just has to sort of stumble into it. But that does give us the out of Unholy Heating it. Oh, these Wastelands. Not doing it for me. Well, this has to make the attack. Are they going to eat it? Or are they just going to take the 3? Oh, they're eating it. So if we fire this off now, we at least get Surveil as well. It's probably worth. So we've got instant, sorcery, enchant. Yeah, we got loads of types in there. Got 5 types. Do we need another Delver? Not really. I can go in the graveyard as well. We know our opponent's got another Volk, so we can't take them off of red. We also can't take them off of Murktide this turn. I guess we wouldn't have been able to take them off of Murktide anyway. It's only because they bounce with the Daze. Oh, that Blue Blast though. That's pretty savage. I believe that is game. Yeah, we were on the draw. I'm just playing catch up. We won the game on the play, lost the games on the draw. That's magic sometimes. All right, let's go to round 2. All right, our opening hand for round 2 is Delver. We've got some removal. We got some counter magic. Seems like a classic Delvering. Underground Sea, go. So I'm expecting an Entomb or a Cycle of a Troll. One of those 2 things. So we're just going to jam our Delver and see what our opponent is up to. If it was an Entomb, we probably have to fight this. If it was a Troll, we don't have an option to fight that. Right, so our opponent's turn. What have you got? There's the Underground Sea we knew about. No play from our opponent. So this makes me think that our opponent has an Animate Dead and they're trying to play around Daze. We'll flip our Delver. Let's see. If this is like a Rescaminator build, they tend not to really have removal in the main deck. I'm not going to play this Brainstorm into what could be a very obvious Orcish Bowmasters. No Bowmasters yet. That doesn't mean they haven't got it. They might just be waiting for a better opportunity. They did nothing with their second turn. Animate Dead. I think I'm okay saying no to this. Alright, opponent is Force of Willing. Okay, that's fine. They've got a 5-power creature. So we're going to start doing Brainstorm stuff now that the Bowmaster shields are down. And I perfectly read what they had there. Okay, let's do the Brainstorm. I don't think this is what we're about, is it? Let's get rid of a land and a Dowser. We'll crack this. Can get Thundering Falls. We don't really need this land. I can go in the graveyard. So this is still a race that we can win. Right, let's attack with our Insect Aberration. So our opponent's effectively on 10. With these 2 lightning bolts in our hand. So now they're on 7. I think I'm going to play this Dowser out. And just get this on the go. This can, if this gets countered, it helps us get Delirium. If it gets into play, it helps us get Delirium for Unholy Heat. Also, I'm not sure if I mentioned it at the top, but there's some really cool synergy with Leyline Dowser and Murktide Regent, where it mills it, but then removes it from the graveyard and puts it into your hand, so it will grow your Murktide Regent, which is pretty spicy. This is also the great sort of card that can get you back into a game after getting sort of grease scammed out of a game a little bit. There is a Wasteland. I don't think it's great to fire off here, but sure. I think it might just be better served as a land that gets to try and hardcast a Grief. Or play around a Daze, potentially. Excuse me. Alright, so we're going to take 5 here, that's fine. And now the Dowser can start doing its thing. A Brazen Borrower. So that's land, instant, creature. This is the artifact that we need. Fire off this Unholy Heat. So this Leyline Dowser can't draw us a land, so there's no point activating it now. We can just hold up Bolt and then activate the Dowser when the time is right. Another great thing about Dowser, it's not card draw, so Orcish Bowmasters doesn't get any pings off of it. If our opponent cracks this Polluted Delta, we have lethal. We know they're drawing a Polluted Delta there. We can also Leyline Dowser in response if we want a blue card. There's an opportunity for it there. You can Brainstorm opponent. Right, finish resolving their Brainstorm. We're going to see a cracked fetch. Right, so there is the fetch being cracked. And they're surveilling. This strikes me as a reanimate play. And they're trying to put in Archon of Cruelty exactly. There is the Archon of Cruelty. Not casting the reanimate though. Just another animate dead perhaps. Murktide Regent, sure. Right, so we can go to attacks. So we have lethal. What are we trying to play around? We can just fire 2 bolts upstairs. I think we're going to pass the turn here. And wait till our opponent does. Okay, so now they're... So let's lightning bolt now. Let's try another one. We can Force of Will or Daze to protect this. You want another Daze? They do not. Alright, we found the spot. Okay, so I would like some Grafdigger's Cages in this matchup where they're reanimating scary things. Counterbalance seems pretty decent here as well, as does the Vapor Snag. I'm not big into blasts against our opponent because all their threats tend to be black, and you just end up in a position that doesn't feel great. Price of Progress is an odd one because they normally have quite a lot of non-basics, and they sometimes go quite low doing reanimate shenanigans, and this can just finish them off. So there is an argument for the Price of Progress. I don't think we want lots of pitch cards, but I think we need some of them. So I think we'll keep these forces. We'll trim on a Daze here. I like the removal sweep because it deals with problem cards like Doughty Voidwalker out of the sideboard. I think we're just cutting a couple of Dazes here, and then we're cutting a Portent for Orcish Bowmasters. We just have one less cantrip. It's probably okay. Do I need all 4 Force of Wills? Did our opponent show us a Murktide Regent in that game? I don't believe they did. We'll submit something along these lines. Alright, we have Delver of Secrets. We have Daze. Got some Bauble action. This all seems like the sort of thing I want to be doing. Our opponent's mulligan to 5. They're not the sort of deck that puts a big scary monster into play on turn 1. That's the thing they do on turn 2. So we should at least be able to get our Daze underneath us. But they could just go land, immediately entomb, pass a turn, then just do reanimate around a Daze. Our opponent kept on 5. It took a while to decide what card to go down. A Grief, pitching Animate Dead. Okay. Our hand's pretty redundant. Now you've got 2 threats. We've got 2 cantrips. We only have the 1 Daze, so maybe that's what they take. It's like our one piece of like full-on interaction. We can just ponder and look for stuff if we need to. It does tell them that we only have 1 land though. Are we going to see a reanimate here? No, we're not. So we will play out our Delver of Secrets, play out our Bauble, and use this in our opponent's turn so that we can be more assured to flip our Delver. We have a Daze that our opponent doesn't know about, which is quite handy. Swamp Cycling the Troll of Khazad-dûm. That's going to give them their Underground Sea. They have 1 card in hand plus the Underground Sea. We should have popped this in their upkeep so we could see what they were drawing. Actually, no, we're going to do it to ourselves, aren't we? Do we care about Unlicensed Hearse? A Volcanic Island. Do I care about Unlicensed Hearse? Like, it becomes annoying at some point, and it's the only thing our opponent's really doing. I think we'll just say no to this one. It's the last card in their hand, Daze. It is not. So we stack these so that we draw off of the Bauble first. So we put the Delver trigger on the bottom. We draw this Volcanic Island. And then Delver flips, maybe? Delver doesn't flip. Our opponent could be on a white build with Pest Control out of the sideboard. But I haven't seen anything to suggest that to me yet. And I just want to get some pressure going. That Unlicensed Hearse could have been bait, and they're trying to reanimate one of their like Griefs or whatever. Or the Troll. But we have answers for that down the line. Cycling of the Troll. That's probably not how they want to spend their turn. Whale of the Forgotten. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them in your hand. Okay, so choosing like the sort of impulse mode. Or strategic planning, isn't it? Yeah. It's like an old... Was it Portal 3 Kingdoms? I can't remember what it was. Let's see what we're doing with these Delvers. I think I want to guarantee the flip here. So we don't want this Volcanic Island, so we can shuffle that one away. Actually, we don't want the island, so we'll shuffle that one away. And then we'll show them the Unholy Heat. These will flip. We can attack for some. Opponent's got 1 card in hand. Are we just pondering? Or are we going to hold this Unholy Heat? We don't have enough card types for Unholy Heat, so I'm just going to ponder, I think. This is our blue card for Force of Will, is the only thing. No, I think we'll hold up the Unholy Heat and just keep our Force of Will. We've got a very quick clock on our opponent. Ponder, that is acceptable. Another Troll. All the Trolls. All 4 of them are in the graveyard. Murktide Regent. I do not want to play against this. Right, so our opponent's Hellbent. We've got 6 power in play. We've got the Leyline Dowser we're about to play. Okay. Yeah, pretty happy with how that one panned out. We got to a little bit of Leyline Dowser action at one point, so that was exciting. But yeah, felt pretty good in this matchup. Let's go to round 3. I don't particularly like this ponder. Sorry, not this ponder, this basic island. And we're going to have to ponder. But it is a keep. I'm just not enthused about it. And we're probably basic island ponder still, so that we have a fetch land to use. Much rather start with a threat. Alright, Mishra's Bauble. I'm expecting some sort of blue-red Delver variant from our opponents. Does this change what we're doing? I think it does. I think this means we get the Volk, so we set ourselves up for potential Dragon's Rage Channeler, and a red spell next turn if we need to. Yep, they're targeting themselves with the Mistress Bauble so they know if they want to crack their fetch or not. I'm not expecting to have this like spell pierce or anything. There's stranger things have certainly happened. Right, they've gone to got themselves a Volcanic. It is a spell pierce. Interesting. So this could be like a tempo style of Delver, like with, not with Nimble Mongoose and stuff, but with Stifles. You'd normally expect to see something like a spell pierce alongside Stifles. There's a Wasteland. Is that what our opponent's going to get up to? I believe it is. Soulguide Lantern. That's actively good against our deck. We didn't play the Mishra's Bauble out last turn because we want to have access to setting up our Delvers or triggering things like Dragon's Rage Channeler. Right, let's ponder. We got a basic land. How do you feel about this one? I have seen a bunch of Delver decks running 2 Soulguide Lanterns in the main deck. A bit of a hedge against all these scam variants kicking around. No, they really don't want us to ponder. Sure. Very, very aggressive approach to use all their tools over there. I could just slam a Dowser, but I think I'm going to cast this Brainstorm. We're doing it now in case our opponent is Grixis and has something like a Bowmasters for next turn. Right, Channeler plus a couple of Baubles feels like a reasonable way of getting into our deck. I don't really want Wasteland, but I also kind of want the mana of a Wasteland. Maybe we throw back the Borrower, or we're throwing back one of the Baubles. We'll throw back one of the Baubles, I think. This feels like a Stifle. I'm reluctant to play into that Stifle. Get this Dowser in. Got some action here. This might allow us to then go and fetch the land we want if they interact with this one. This is the most obvious Stifle I've ever seen in my life. I think I'm going to play one of these Baubles out and let them burn off this 1 blue mana, and then we're going to fire it. Our opponent has been putting a premium on denying our mana and stuff like that, and the tools they've shown us are very Stifle oriented. Okay, there's another land on top of their library. We can get into spots where we can Stifle and maybe take them off of, sorry, not Stifle, Wasteland, and maybe take them off of a Stifle. Right, so now we've got Force of Negation, which is not going to be unhelpful, I would imagine. It's not the exact thing we're after. Maybe it means you can fight on their turn to try and do our Stifle stuff. Or to get around their Stifle stuff even. That's what they're drawing. Another Delver. Okay. We can make a fight of it. A Daze. Alright, that helps us play around Stifle type shenanigans. So they're going to flip this Delver that we've seen on top. And just take the 1. And deploy a Delver. Got another land. Right, let's fight over this Stifle now. Oh, they're just letting us have it. Intriguing. Let's bolt one of their Delvers. They really not have a Stifle all this time. So we could really attack our opponent's mana base. Or we could... I guess if we've got this Daze, we probably want to be attacking our opponent's mana base aggressively here. You're going to use that red mana? They are cracking a fetch land here. This is so they can play around a Daze with this lightning bolt that they're going to point out a creature. I think I'm okay just taking out another land. It turns our Daze on into a much better card. Is the Delver going to flip this time around? A Brainstorm. A good card. They've got a Wasteland, so they can take us off a red mana here. Yeah, this basic island has kind of jammed us up in some weird ways. Right, let's play a Delver. So they're floating here as well. So we don't really get to do anything about this. Right, it's been a bit of a weird one. Are we hitting this brain? I don't think we're hitting this Brainstorm. Like, whatever they're going to play next is going to get swept up in our Daze. We will need to answer this Insectile Aberration at some point. We've got a few turns before we're too worried about that. We've got Murktide covered in a couple of ways right now with the Daze and the Brazen Borrower. It's just this little insect friend having a jolly good time smashing into our face. A Dragon's Rage Channeler. I will say no to this. We have the Borrower for the Murktide down the line. We just need a little bit more mana. This island. Oof. Back in my day when we played Delver, we had 6 non-basic lands that tap for mana, 4 wastelands, and then fetches. None of this basic island lark. So we are very much in a bad state. There's a lesson out there, and that's win the die roll in mirrors. That would be my advice to you. When we get Delver, we might be able to flip this and use it to block, but we're just one lightning bolt away from dying here. If they bolt on their turn, we can Force of Negation it. I wonder if they'd play around that. They probably wouldn't. They'd probably just play around our tapped mana. So they have a bolt, they probably fire off now. Delver's Secrets. You're not making it easy for us, are you? Okay, Brainstorm is the exact sort of card that could get us out of a spot like this. So what have we got? We've got... Okay, so we can make the things we need. I think we just have to put back both the Dowsers right now. Get this. Deploy ourselves a 3/3 flyer. Our aim is to block their guys. We have a Force of Negation, which can get around a Lightning Bolt, a Brainstorm. That's a pretty good one. But they don't want it. That is fascinating. A Lightning Bolt. I think we have to keep the Borrower. Yeah, they just do nothing here. And then our Channeler has to attack, and then they swing back with some guys. However, so how many sorceries do we have? Not that many. Let's start culling instants, I think. And we can take one sorcery. We need this to resolve. It did resolve. Alright. Maybe the turns have tabled. For those of you who like a Malifaux. Alright, that's just GG's there. They bounce it, attack both guys. Okay. So we were on the draw and it didn't go well for us. So blasts are looking good here. Vapor Snag is reasonable. Counterbalance is pretty good here. I don't really like forces in this matchup. I'll take out the Force of Negation as well. It gives us 2 more cards fine. I do like the Leyline Dowser as a grindy thing that we can finish up the game with. I'm not big into Wastelands. They're just extra mana sources more than anything. Maybe we'll trim 1 Daze. This looks pretty reasonable to me. We've got a selection of answers for our opponent's Murktide. Okay, we'll keep this. We'll do the Dragon's Rage Channeler thing. I think we are favoured because we're going first. But we're not favoured in the overall matchup because our opponent gets to go first for game 3 if we win this one. But it's still possible to break serve. It's not like it's completely unwinnable if you go second. It's just a slightly different beast of a game, really. Volcanic Island. A Ponder. Okay. So we get Dragon's Rage Channeler into Thundering Falls next turn if we want it. They did not shuffle off of their Ponder. Alright, I don't think we're in Thundering Falls territory just yet. So let's play this. If this gets countered for some reason, then it pumps our Channeler. Right, let's go and cast a Portent, I think, here. This will get us toward... This is a good card in the matchup is the only problem. But I think we're just trying to fuel our graveyard. So this will give us Delirium this turn. I do like these cards. I would quite like this Daze. I don't really want this Polluted Delta. I'll take this Ponder, though. And then we get to bash for 3. And then in our opponent's upkeep, we will draw that Daze. Right, so we've got a little bit of protection against what our opponent's doing. Got more cards in our graveyard. Got Ponder incoming. Just casually 6 flying power on turn 2. A Polluted Delta. Dragon's Rage Channeler, you can have it. A Delver of Secrets. I think they can have that one too. So we draw the Ponder. We could just take the top card off immediately. And then, because we know the top card isn't one we want. Let's crash for the damage we have to crash for. And we can fire off a Ponder now. Some Surveils going. Yeah, I'll take another 3/3. Yeah, I like this card. So we put the Unholy Heat, then the Delver, then we have the Channeler. To deploy the Channeler. Next time we deploy the Delver and it will flip. Just good old-fashioned gaming here. A Daze. Do I care about this getting dazed or not? I suppose it depends what they mill with the Channeler to an extent. If they mill another type, then that's give them Delirium. But we are quite far ahead in this race. And we have the Borrower as well. And we have the Unholy Heat on top of our library. Would I want to Daze this, or am I more concerned about something else? Our opponent kept something on top. No, I think we allow this one to hit the graveyard. We pause for a while, so our opponent knows you've got something at this point. Right, so this is probably going to flip because they kept the card on top. Cast into the fire. So that is 1 damage to each of 2 creatures. So Delver in our hand looks less good. Or not in our hand, on the top of our library. So if we get an opportunity to Surveil, we can clear that Delver. Although it is a 2-mana spell just to kill a Delver. Maybe we don't care that much about. We're going to have the option of Brainstorm in our upkeep to shift that Delver as well. But it's just as easy to draw it, then cast a Brainstorm, put it back on top, and then do some surveilling by casting any other spell, really. That also gets us deeper with our Brainstorm. A Dragon's Rage Channeler. Okay. I'm going to attack for 4 here. Staying back on blocks as far as this Brainstorm. Like I said, we don't want this Delver, so that can go away. Do we want this Ponder? Maybe. I think we want the Daze. We definitely want the Unholy Heat. Let's bolt this Insectile Aberration. And this will clear these 2 cards we don't want. So this makes these both 3/3s. Yeah, that was a mistake really, wasn't it? I should have just bounced this Delver. Now we're going to trade everything up if we attack. I'm going to take the double block. They are. Yeah, we should have just bounced the Delver instead of shooting it. That was just a mistake. I wanted to keep the Borrower in hand for a potential Murktide. Not a play I was proud of that one. We do have the better card advantage engine on our deck in the form of the Dowser, if we can find it. But we just gave up all the tempo we generated. So very much for not how to have played that one, I think there. Especially since they don't have the instants and sorceries in the graveyard to make their Murktide bigger than an Unholy Heat anyway. We could have just saved that for a Murktide for now. And we got the Daze that's kind of covering it until they find another land. We don't know what the top card of our library is. We don't have another Surveil land, so we're not cracking our Scalding Tarn. Seeking of the Beast. I will take this opportunity to reset my Surveil land. That was a great exchange for us there. A Pyroblast. Not unhappy to see that one. The question is, are we cracking this Scalding Tarn first? Because that gives us the opportunity to play the Borrower. I think we are. We could have got the Mystic Sanctuary there. Yeah, I think I'll have that still. You can run out this Borrower now. We've got an answer to Murktide and an answer to potentially another Murktide or any creature. So I think we're just going to run out our... Actually, the problem with our Borrower is we know they've got Cast Into the Fire, right? So we need them to tap off of the mana for it. We're not Pyroblasting this. Our Pyroblast is for the Murktide. So if we get a shot with 1 hit of 3 damage from our Borrower, is that worth it? Not sure about that one. There's a Wasteland. Not a particularly useful card right now. Yeah, so we're not going to play into this Cast Into the Fire. We're just going to draw our Lightning Bolt and carry on with life. We've got some answers in hand. At some point we'll draw some gas. A Counterbalance, you say? Counter target spell if it's blue, please. Don't really want that to hit and play. There's a Bauble. So we could jam the Borrower and get 3 damage in right now. Do I want to spend 3 mana to get 3 damage? I don't think so. Now that we don't have an answer to the Murktide readily available, I think we're better off having this because it bounces out of play for a turn. Okay. So our opponent's drawing a Brazen Borrower. Alright, that's nice to know about. A Leyline Dowser. Okay, so now we've hit the thing that we're looking for. So we should be able to run away with this game, however this Cast Into the Fire exists. So what I want to do is play our Borrower into this Cast Into the Fire. And then we just use our Dowser to run away with this game. Like the Dowser could be a 2-for-1 anyway if it draws us a card. She's got some flexibility here. Our opponent does have a lot of cards though. So I need to recoup that disadvantage we're in. And we're just going to jam this little friend here. Are we firing off a Lightning Bolt? I don't think so. Okay, alright, let's get our 3 damage in here. Let's try for the Dowser. What's on top of your library, opponent? They can't have that many 2s. They must have boarded out some number of days. A Pyroblast. Okay, so we don't want to cast 1-drops right now. On the top card of our library. Destroy Daze. So we can pick up our Thundering Falls given the opportunity. Once this Pyroblast is off the top, then we can try casting Lightning Bolts as and when. They probably have to cast into the fire this Dowser as soon as possible. But if they don't have a land, it means they can't... Oh wow, they're just going for it now, are they? Or is this a Murktide Regent? 1, 2, 3. This will be killable. I would like to get my Thundering Falls back, please. Polluted Delta. Okay. We don't want to see a land here. We didn't see a land. That's good news. So this dies to an Unholy Heat. And we know the top card of our opponent's library already. This Dowser... Sorry, this Thundering Falls is going to help us out with our Dowser or not. Dragon's Rage Channeler. It's going to go into our graveyard when we activate the Dowser anyway. So may as well just put it in now. In we come for 3. Play this while we know it's fine. Activate our Dowser. Get that card advantage if we can. A Blue Blast. So our opponent can cast into the fire and kill both of our creatures. But that leaves us with a Leyline Dowser, which is a very scary proposition for our opponent. But I think they are priced into killing both of our guys here. Maybe we're not supposed to bring out the Delver and we're just supposed to bolt them. But if they crack this fetch, then they're dead to the bolt in our hand. We have a Blue Blast. Right, so we're getting cast into the fire as expected. But that leaves us with our Dowser. Yep, we're taking out Thundering Falls after we've got several Surveils off of it. Opponent is tapped out, more or less. They've just got this one... Well, it's got this one Polluted Delta. Let's activate the Dowser. We'll pass the turn. We can always just cast a Hydroblast because we can target anything with it. Just so we can see a top card of our opponent's library. We want our opponent to crack this fetch land though. But eventually we will just run away with the game with using this Dowser. Let's cast a Brainstorm. What have you got on top there? A Wasteland. Okay. A counterbalance of my very own. It's not really what I'm about at this moment in time. But we'll do this. And I'll play this one out. I'm pretty sure I put these in the right order. On top of my library. We'd like to Lightning Bolt our Delver. So we Hydroblast, they Pyroblast. I don't want to deal with that. Did I stack this the right way or did I stack it the wrong way? This game has been quite long. We stacked it the wrong way. Okay, that's Petty Theft on the Dowser. Sure. Let's get the Dowser in. They don't have enough lands for a Mystic Sanctuary to put whatever they want on top. They revealed a land. Let's bolt them here. Whilst the top of their library is still a Flooded Strand. Alright, a bit of a grind. We made a little misstep somewhere along the lines, but we did manage to eventually get back into it. Am I happy with the setup? I think so. We could definitely tweak with some numbers here, but we're not going to want things like Price of Progress when we're on the draw. Having more lands is better on the draw, so I think we're probably going to just have an additional Wasteland over the days, just so it helps us pay for things. Basically our opponent's days. That was a pretty good game though, even though we made a little misstep here and there. But Leyline Dowser did some work. Alright, Ponder, Island, Delver, you know, these are things we want. I would like some ways of removing our opponent's stuff, but we at least are not going to get Wasteland, and our opponent's shown us that they're quite deep on the Wastelanding type strategy and a soft permission off of like Spell Pierces and stuff. I'm pretty sure that was this game. Feels like a lifetime ago. We're going to go and get a basic island. As much as I hate having the basic island in the deck, I think the fact that we've got 2 red sources queued up means that we can just make sure we're not going to get chucked behind curve, which is how you lose this one. If they get to go first and then also set you back a turn, then that usually ends up poorly for you. Right, our opponent has a Daze we need to keep in mind. Means we're not going to be firing off this Counterbalance straight away. I also don't think, because we've got so many cards in our hand that we're kind of mediocre on, I don't really want to be brainstorming just to flip this. I'd rather see additional cards. Could blind flip. It did blind flip. To a very good card, in fact. Right, let's go to attacks. Right, let's go for a Brainstorm here. I'm not big into the Wastelands. It's not really what I'm about here. We send those 2 back. Crack this. Sounds Volcanic. We can either Ponder here or we can hold up the Pyroblast. What are we holding up the Pyroblast for? Counterbalance, but then they also have the Daze to go with already. But we have a Daze, but they're going to have the mana to play around it. No, I think we're just pondering here. Okay, I like these cards. Let's put them in this order. And pass. We also need to keep an eye on the clock. That's a very real factor at the moment. We're both heading towards 5 minutes on the clock. Yep, we'll take 3 from this guy. There's a Wasteland. Is that what you want to be doing with your life opponent? It is, apparently. And a Dragon's Rage Channeler. Cracking their Flooded Strand. A Ponder. I don't think we're fighting over this Ponder. We need to make our decisions very abruptly here. Every second matters. We've got a tiny amount of time on our opponent here. Right, so there's the Dowser we knew about. We slam our Dragon's Rage Channeler here. We know we want the top card of our library. So I don't think we're supposed to Brainstorm here. I think we'll hold back our Delver, try and use it as a removal spell. Our Leyline Dowser can just get us all the card advantage we need. Possibly some soft card advantage from the Counterbalance here and there. I've never been a fan of Counterbalance very much. Like with Sensei Divine on top, sure, that makes perfect sense. But just having it in a matchup where you're kind of relying on like Brainstorms and Ponders. There's definitely been a number of games where me or my opponent has cast a Counterbalance and it's done literally nothing. A Counterbalance, you say? We'll get them, let them have their Surveil. Do we cast a Brainstorm in response? No, I don't think so. Just let them have the Counterbalance. We know they got a Daze as well. I'm happy to draw the card on top of my library here. Right, let's cast this Brainstorm and see if the Counterbalance interferes with this. They have Surveils going on. Okay, an Unholy Heat is what they have. So we know they have a Daze, so we don't really want to be doing that either. So in our opponent's turn, we can try and Pyroblast it. Or we can Pyroblast a Delver if that's what we think this game is about. Unholy Heat on our Sextile Aberration. I'm going to destroy this Delver rather than the Counterbalance. Bit of a weird situation. Oh, they had a Pyroblast on top. Okay. That is unfortunate. So their removal spell resolves. They get to attack here. I will take this trade. Alright, it's time to put our counterbalance into play. We know they got a Pyroblast on top. A Mystic Sanctuary. Put that on top of our library, because we can fetch that in a second. Our friend has to attack. And we can put Pyroblast on top of our library as well. This might be the moment our opponent chooses to Pyroblast. There's still this Daze hanging around from a million years ago. Feels like we're going to get this one done in time, potentially. A Mystic Sanctuary. We knew that was on top, didn't we? Because that's all we were going to fetch. Whoops. So if we Hydroblast this, our opponent dazes and we get nowhere. So this Mystic Sanctuary. This can go and get us a Pyroblast. We just need to try and remove our opponent's creatures from the game. Do we know what's on top of our opponent's library? I don't think we do. This also gets us a Surveil. We know the top card of our library though. Maybe we're supposed to do it the other way around, but we want to have the mana open to play around the Daze. Right, let's have a Volcanic Island on top. Let's get rid of this. Still that Volcanic Island. This goes in the graveyard because we're doing Leyline Dowser stuff. That keeps us from losing the game for a while. Alright. We found a way through. Potentially. Murktide Regent? Feels like a Murktide Regent. There it is. 4/4 though. We don't... Our opponent doesn't know what's on top of the library. I'm going to attack here. Let's cast Brainstorm. Another Channeler. A Delver of Secrets. These cards are all fine. He's having a fight. They are. No, maybe not. I'm just getting some damage in. Get to drop this Channeler. This is a real tight game, this one. Interesting. They got another Murktide here. They do have another Murktide. It's not what I wanted to see. We do have to chump block here. So we chump block here. Our blocks. Then we're going to lightning bolt our opponent's face. Get some Surveil triggers. Cast into the fire. So if we activate this, our opponent dazes. So we have to let that go. Our opponent had a lightning bolt on top as well. Alright, it's not looking good for us over here. We fought the good fight. Nope, that's the end of that one. Oh, that was a tough one. Once again, we played the mirror. We win the games we're on the play. We just lose the games we're on the draw. This was close, but we didn't quite get there. The counterbalance ended up being pretty clutch in the end, which sometimes it does feel like that. Usually when your opponent has it rather than you have it. All right, let's go to round 4. All right, our opening hand for round 4 does not go anywhere, so this is a mulligan. I don't like this one, but I will keep this one given our opponent's mulliganing quite aggressively over there. I think I would rather have... I'd rather have the free draw. No, we're going to keep the Brainstorm. Our opponent's mulliganed a lot, so I would quite like to have interaction with our opponent. Leyline of the Thingamajig. Okay. Guild Pact, that's the one. So we're thinking about Scion of Draco is most likely what they're up for here. Right, let's get a Thundering Falls down. Yeah, we don't need you, Murktide. You do not tap for mana. Probably for the best. Alright, what is our opponent up to? Nothing at present. Okay, I can live with that. Love to draw a land here. We did draw a land. Not great against what our opponent's got cooking over there, though. Because if we wasteland their thing, they just sack it. But if they tap it, we can then wasteland it. Which is not completely without merit. And it also shows our opponent that we don't have a problem finding lands. We can at least keep up the pretense. There is a basic island. Is our opponent just going to get basics here? A Leyline Binding. Honestly, that's fine for now. I'm more worried about their permanents that attack us than them answering our 1-mana guys. Brainstorm, pretty good. This could definitely be a match where our red and blue blasts feel pretty powerful. We get to smash any of their permanents, right? Is it non-land permanents or each non-land permanent you control is all colours, yeah. So we get to give them the old Painter's Servant type experience. Okay, so this turn we're probably going to be doing a Brainstorm, but we'll see what we draw first. A Ponder. Is Ponder better than Brainstorm? I don't think so in this situation. We don't need this Lightning Bolt. Don't we want this Murktide either? We're going to have to draw one of them. Which one would I rather draw? Probably the Murktide. At least it's blue. So next turn we can use this Ponder to shuffle. But if we have to fire off a Daze, that's going to suck. I suspect Daze isn't going to do anything now our opponent's got some mana underneath them. Right, another follow-up from our opponent now. Oh, no, they're just a second main phase hipster. Alright, Cycling the Lore Revealed. Makes sense. Getting Hedge Maze. Getting some surveil action going. They left it on top. So now we have to cast a Ponder. And most likely shuffle these bad cards away. So we're getting close to Murktide Regent being a thing we get to do. If our opponent gives us some sort of Force of Will target, then that will certainly help. We can obviously use our Wastelands. Scion of Draco. I would like to say no to Scion of Draco. We don't have another Surveil land, so we're just going to go to our turn and then crack this in. Just make a large creature. I will take my opponent off the hedge maze. So we've got Wasteland. Sorry, not Wasteland. Well, we do have Wasteland, but we have Force of Will is what I meant to say. And Daze. We've got more or less a 3-turn clock. A Leyline Binding. Our opponent on 2 cards over there. I don't think this Daze is getting any better. Let's just say no to what they got going on. I have to imagine they got more reactive spells if they've not been doing anything. Alright, that's exactly the sort of thing I want to see here. Love me some Leyline Dowsing. So this does give us a 3-turn clock, most likely. So let's mill. Oh, okay, we didn't get instant or sorcery because that would immediately pop out the graveyard and turn us into a 7. But we only need to find 1 more point of damage over the next couple of turns to make this a 3-turn clock. And we have a Brainstorm that can set up our Dowser if we need that final point of damage on the last turn. A Brainstorm. Swords to Plowshares is a little bit sad, I won't lie. We can Wasteland their Polluted Delta. I think step 1 is probably Brainstorm. Delver of Secrets and a Ponder, you say. So put this on top. Cast this. Play this. Activate the Dowser. We crack this and we can set up the Delver for next turn. This does not set up the Delver for next turn. I think we're going to go any order and shuffle here. Another Delver. Okay. Flooded Strand being cracked at end step for a basic Plains. Is that just a fetch to Finn? Or no, sorry, they had a Brainstorm last time, didn't they? They're cracking off the Brainstorm. 2 mana. Is this another Scion of Draco, whatever they're called? No, this looks like a Murktide. Yep, a 7/7 Murktide is quite large and most likely in charge. And what does this reveal? DRC. So we might be able to clap back with a lot of damage next turn. We will win this race if it is just what's in play right now and everything's turning sideways. But they can just hold back that Murktide and just gobble up our Channeler for free. And at any point they find like a Scion of Draco, we're in trouble. But we can find some things ourselves. What have you got for us? A Wasteland. We don't want to draw that, so we will mill it. If we mill it, we don't draw a card, but we don't draw the Wasteland. Alright, we'll just draw it, I think. And we'll activate the Dowser here. We'll leave this Wasteland in hand for the purposes of Brainstorm. Unfortunately, our little Dragon's Race Channeler has got to take a powder here. In you go. Delicious dragon food. That's my opponent's turn. What are they up to? If they can commit any other of the sort of creatures in their deck, they're probably like Triumph of St. Catherine, Scion of Draco, that sort of jam. A Lightning Bolt. Yes, I'll reveal this. Yes, I'll reveal this. Then I will activate the Dowser because it's just a guaranteed free card. Draw for turn. A Force of Will. Not unhappy to see that. At some point, we'll find a way through this Murktide. And we're just having a staring competition for a Ponder. Alright, let's cast this Ponder. Dragon's Race Channeler. Again, it's not really what I'm about right now, is it? I think we go any order and shuffle. Force of Negation. Let's activate the Dowser. Nothing. If we play this Wasteland out, it gives us hard cast Force of Negation, so I think that's worth doing. If we can string together a few more Lightning Bolts, we might just be able to attack our opponent and get there. Triumph of St. Catherine. That's a pretty scary customer. This Daze is definitely not getting any better, so let's just say no to Triumph of St. Catherine. At least we know our opponent drew for the turn, and it means they're unlikely to do anything with the rest of their mana because they haven't been doing anything with mana with the cards in their hand already. A Portent. Let's cast a Portent. Look at our library. I don't really like these cards. We're looking for relatively specific things here. Right, that wasn't it. Like the Borrower. Unholy Heat gives us a chance at hitting this Murktide. Right, we've got a Channeler. Given the pace of this game, I think we need to be aware of our clock going into next round, next game. Right, this is kind of what I've been waiting for. But what is their follow-up? If it's the Scion, they play it before combat. So the Murktide, you probably play it before. No, because you're not going to grow it. So a Solitude. Pitch casting the Solitude. Alright. Guess we lose a Delver. I'll at least get to clap back a little bit. Yes, I would like this Unholy Heat. I think I will attack though. And then if they stay back on blocks to kill the channeler, that's where the Unholy Heat will get them, but they know we have the Unholy Heat. So it becomes a somewhat awkward situation for them. And if we find a lightning bolt, another one of these. Well, we already have the answer for this. And they know we have the answer. We will just put it in the top 7 cards. So how much of an answer is that? I'll leave that for you to decide. Alright. A Brainstorm. That's a pretty good place to start. Is that a good place to start? I think we need to Unholy Heat this first before we do anything else. Dragon's Rage Channel. These things are just getting eaten at the moment, so let's just put them in the graveyard. Yeah, you can have your little thing. Nothing on the Dowser. Maybe we should have cast this Brainstorm first. That was a bit loose of me. To graveyard with you, Island. Another Dowser is not unacceptable. But we got this for the... Maybe we just don't need the Dowser right now. And I think we'll cast a Ponder. An Unholy Heat. I do like an Unholy Heat. 2 Dowsers is a lot of Dowsers though. We do get to mill one of them. Is this Unholy? I don't think this is what we're looking for though. I think it's okay. It stops the next Triumph of St. Catherine whilst we try and Dowser our way into a Lightning Bolt or Borrower. We are winning this race. Our opponent doesn't know that because we got the Lightning Bolt in hand. Right, they didn't draw a Triumph this turn. It's an Uro. Feels like an Uro. No? 4 mana. 5 mana. This is just a hard cast Triumph. Oh, no, just going to draw some cards. I think this is our spot where we say no. If you attack, we attack. And then we get close to maybe winning the game. Alright, our opponent agrees that that's a possibility. We could try and hit some of these things, but I think we're better off just getting our Dowser in and trying to get over the line that way. We know the top of our library is a Dowser. No, I think we just pass here. The Dowser cannot find a Brazen Borrower, which is certainly an irritating one. I will mill this Dowser just because we get another look at the next card. Oh, there's the Borrower. That was unfortunate. Force of Will. I don't hate that as a card. Guess we pass. So we've got this hard cast Force of Will we can fire off here. That does take us off of Dowsers for a turn. But this stops this card being in the mix altogether. What a weird game. We've nearly gone through our whole deck here. Such is the power of Leyline Dowser. There's 2 Lightning Bolts in our deck somewhere. We've got 3 cards in hand. Feels like a hard cast Force of Will could be over there. So I'm relatively pressured into trying to find something else. Right, let's jam this Delver. So we have lethal Lightning Bolts, but I wouldn't mind having a lethal Delver as well. Every last point of damage we can scrape, our opponent keeps passing the turn with Force of Will mana open. What have you got for us, Delver? A Misty Rainforest. I don't believe there's anything even left to fetch for this. Not 100% sure on that one. Alright, I think we just pass again. Continue the strange game. If our opponent taps out, then maybe we can use that as a spot to start bolting their face. It's another Murktide. It's not even going to grow the first. Just mill with this. Alright, we'll mill again. Like, we've pretty much entered the end game here. Right, we'll allow this. They shouldn't be attacking here. We get to cast a Brainstorm now. Got to be careful of the cards in our library though. So if we put this down and then we put the Unholy Heat on top. I would like to Lightning Bolt my opponent once here. I would like to Unholy Heat their creature here. Alright. Okay, a bit of a long one and we drew our entire deck with Leyline Dowser. Okay, so what do we want for this sort of matchup? We're not going to be countering their 6 drops and all their big stuff, so maybe that's not the plan. Blasts are an interesting one that can either be really good or really bad. I think we do need them because that's the games we're going to lose, if that makes sense. And then possibly some number of this sort of jam. The Dazes on the draw aren't going to be good. So that gives us like, I think we want the Pyroblasts, and then we can have 1 blue blast. Price of Progress is an odd one because they can fetch around stuff, but maybe I'm into a price here. Could just burn our opponent out in pretty savage fashion. And then what are we looking at? The Wastelands is definitely a way we can fight our opponent. Is it aggressive to go for these prices? Or should we be going for more defensive stuff like another Force of Negation? Or a Counterbalance? I don't like the Counterbalance that much. It can counter a decent chunk of their stuff, but then they got so many big O's that we're just going to get in our business. Maybe we want a Vapor Snag just to bounce out one of their big things, but then they're just going to replay it, right? Like the Scion, the problem is not that, is it? I guess we take a blue blast here. Maybe duck out of 1 Portent for another blast. I don't really want 2 blasts. Let's take another price. We also have to be aware that we are a little bit behind on clock because we are going through more operations in that game than our opponent was. I will keep this hand. We will play a Dragon's Rage Channeler and just do Dragon's Rage Channeler-y things. Alternatively, we can play out the Delver and at least have a chance to flip it on turn 1 and keep the pressure up. That might be better. Right, they're beginning with a Leyline of the Guild Pact. That's very much where our opponent wants to be. Not the land I wanted. Okay, I think I'm going to go for the Delver of Secrets here because it has a chance to flip and start attacking for more damage. And hopefully we can draw into the next land so we can play the Dragon's Rage Channeler and a Ponder next turn. If our opponent just drops a Scion of Draco here, then we probably just lose this one. A Brainstorm, that's excellent news for us. And a Tundra. That is very Wastelandable at the very least. Could see something like a Plow or a Leyline Binding on our Delver. We're going to flip you. We are. Let's go attacks. Get our damage in. I don't believe our opponent's running Daze, but it's possible. A Solitude pitching Leyline of the Guild Pact. I think we have to let this hit because Sign of Draco is a thing we have to counterspell because we just can't beat that. Or a Triumph of St. Catherine. But as I was saying, I don't think our opponent runs Daze in the deck, but we may as well play out this Channeler first before we start Wastelanding. So our opponents set up a Triumph of St. Catherine. They don't get to Miracle it now, but they went through a draw step very quickly, so it makes me think that's not what they were doing. Alright, they are cracking their fetch land. Getting a basic. So we can bounce this Leyline and sort of jam our opponent up a bit. Carpet of Flowers. That is a lot of mana. I don't think that's our fight. I think our fight is the payoffs. And maybe that'll be a mistake. We're getting plowed here. No. Another Wasteland. I would like to cast a Brainstorm here. I do like this Dragon's Rage Channeler, but we need a creature in the graveyard, so in you go. Some Baubles and another land. This all seems fine to me. We can definitely mill off one Wasteland. Do we mill off both Wastelands? I think so. Our opponent's got the carpet. I'm okay firing off this Ponder. Force of Negation. I think we're not worried about that. I think we're more worried about their creature spells. A bunch of threats is pretty much what the Doctor ordered. So put the Ponder on the bottom and the other two. We're going to draw them all anyway. Let's see what our opponent's drawing over there. Planes. Not very exciting. By cracking both of them, it gives us more choices of what blue card we pitch to Force of Will next turn. Maybe we want to keep the Borrower and we'd rather pitch a Delver. Because we've got 1 mana threats. That's not what we're short of at this point. I think keeping the Borrower as the utility piece is more important. And the Ponder just finds us like a Murktide that can close the door on the game. Now you can have mana, but you've got to do something with this mana. A Brainstorm. Sure, that's a pretty good thing to do with the mana. So we don't know if they're going to keep these planes in hand. We can say no to that one. Swords to Plowshares. This is not our fight. We just need to stop their big threats coming into play. We've got plenty of threats. Let's play a Delver and a Channeler. And pass. We're still holding this Force of Will. Our opponent's got 1 card in hand. A Leyline Binding is their last card in hand. Again, we still have a threat in play. This is fine. And at any point we draw any of our blasts, we can just start taking these out whenever we want. We just need to stop a Sign of Draco or a Triumph of St. Catherine from being all up in our business. Also, Solitude is pretty scary. Okay, this is what we've been waiting for. Say no to this. Get rid of our Ponder. We will very much reveal this Brainstorm. We'll cast this Brainstorm. It can find us additional threats. Or it can find a Force of Will blue card, which I think is probably for the best. So the Bolt goes down at the bottom. What are we pitching to Force of Will? It's probably the Ponder, which means we put the Delver of Secrets on top. No, we put the Borrower and then the Lightning Bolt, and then we play the Delver. So we've still got our shields up for another turn. So you've got 2-turn clock because we've got Lightning Bolt on the top as well. We just have to fade our opponent drawing stuff for a couple of turns, but we have one answer straight up. We can also use the Borrower to bounce the Leyline to jam them up if they're trying to gain life off of a Scion. Is this a pest control? No. 5 mana. A Solitude. This is the sort of caliber of card that we are saying no to. So now we untap. This shows them a Lightning Bolt. We bash for 6. Opponent has 1 draw step. Otherwise, they get killed by our Lightning Bolt. They should know if they're dead or not right now. Blue. A Ponder. Okay. That looks at something that could pull them out of this one. We want to see the shuffle. They did not shuffle. That is an awkward situation for us potentially. Right, they've gone to 6. That means any of our insect aberrations dealing them damage will be lethal with this lightning bolt. But they know about the lightning bolt, so they've got to have an answer. Maybe their cantrip just found them another cantrip. So they're shuffling and taking a look at more cards. That would make sense. Yes, that's what's happening here. Okay. Are these good Brainstorm cards or bad Brainstorm cards? This is an Uro to gain 3 life. We haven't seen any Uros yet, so they might not be running them. Blue and green. All right, they haven't got anything. So we got the match there. That felt like a pretty solid matchup for what we were doing. I'm not wholly convinced by these Leyline and the Guild Pact decks because they don't feel great when they have Leyline and the Guild Pact not in play. And even when they had it in play, it didn't feel great. And we just prioritized our counter spells for the thing we needed to kill, which was a Sign of Draco. All right, we are 2-2 going into the final round, so let's jam. Oh, Basic Island, how much I hate you. I will keep you, though. Okay, so we've got another land. We've got our one-off Borrower, which is always quite a nice thing to have in the mix. We're definitely taking this land. It's a case of what is the one card that we take with it. I think it's probably the Murktide most of the time, because we're likely to pitch the blue card to Force of Will down the line. So maybe we're supposed to stack it the other way, but this way it doesn't get griefed out of our hand. A Flooded Strand. Let's go and put a Dragon's Rage Channeler into play. And then we'll follow this up with a Ponder. This can go in the graveyard. Don't need this now. I do like the Leyline Dowser against the Flooded Strand Go strategy. I think put the Dowser on top. We probably want to go like Brainstorm, Dowser, Tarn this way. And if we're in a matchup where we don't think the Dowser is going to be what we want, we can always surveil it away with a Force of Will against what our opponent's doing, or an Unholy Heat. A basic island from our opponent. This is one of the fancy Unfinity ones, I think. Alright, Plains and Island. A blue-white control deck of some description. I can live with that. Opponent's got 6 cards in hand. Let's play this Dowser. Just take a top card while we know we're getting it. Okay. So every turn that goes by, we're going to accrue some card advantage. And this should hopefully be enough to let us overcome what our opponent's doing, because they are in the control spectrum by the looks of things. You don't run Prismatic Ending in any old deck. Teferi Time Raveler. I think this is worth counterspelling. Like, if we counterspell this, then it means that our follow-up counterspells can do stuff. And let's activate this Dowser now. So we've got a Thundering Falls we can have access to here. So the top card of our library and see if we want to crack. I don't think we want that. Just going to get the Thundering Falls. Lightning Bolt. I don't mind having a bit of burn, but I don't think that's what this is about just yet. We're not in the let's try and burn our opponent out stage of the game. Right, we're just going to plow our guy. We need to get some recurring damage in. We've got Daze that can reset our Thundering Falls, even if we don't get to counterspell an actual thing our opponent's doing. I think it's going to get them a Plains, and they're going to play a Teferi. We're going to reset our Thundering Falls. That's what I predict. Could be a Narset. Narset's pretty good in the meta right now. Or a Mountain. Okay, it is a Narset. Let's get the extra value off of our Thundering Falls. Narset also doesn't stop Leyline Dowser, which is nice. What's on top? We don't want that. We just hold up the Force of Negation here, so we can hardcast that. If not, we can fire off the Dowser. We're starting to pull away from our opponent in terms of the amount of cards we've seen. Now, some of those are just getting milled straight away, but then it's cards that aren't doing anything that we're not drawing. The downside with Dowser is it doesn't draw you threats. However, I've got a video lined up for the future where we do draw threats with it, so don't you worry. We'll do some dowsing at the end step. Yes, I would like a free Brainstorm. I will take a Portent. I think these are okay. We put the Island, Brainstorm, and Ponder. We'll mill. This guarantees us one of the cards. And then we can Brainstorm on our opponent's turn and set up the next one. And at some point, we'll draw a Murktide Regent. I'm definitely going to fire this Brainstorm end step. We need to be relatively aware of what we're doing with our mana. Since we have this sort of taxing our mana every turn. I say a tax, it's just drawing us cards every turn. That's the sort of tax I like to pay. Okay, so I guess we just put a couple of these on top. And we draw the other one with the Dowser. I'm drawing so many cards. Let's ponder. Okay, threats. I like this. So we draw the Delver. So we play this out. I think we want to Brainstorm now. We don't really need this. I wouldn't mind having another Dowser. I don't think we need a second Dowser. We can use it as an artifact to put in the graveyard, although we've already got artifacts in the graveyard. Maybe we mill the Wasteland instead. So we can talk our opponent's library. So Lauren Revealed. That's a pretty good one. Is that a thing we're supposed to counterspell? Perhaps. Because the whole thing we're doing is trying to overrun our opponent's cards. They haven't been playing anything, so I have to imagine they've got answers in hand. Plow, that's fine. Cycling Lore Revealed, that means the Lore Revealed on top of their library isn't a thing they're going to draw and just straight out cast. Okay, they've got Mystic Sanctuary, so they can just put the Lore Revealed on top if they want to. Or we can start double dowsing Mystic Sanctuary, they're going to put back the Lore Revealed, or they're going to put back a removal spell. Putting back a removal spell. Okay, so we see the sort of lines our opponent's taking. They're taking a very defensive posture. Not a surprise given the nature of their deck. What was our opponent up to there? Is that a 4th Eorlingus? It is a 4th Eorlingus. I think we have to say no to this one. This means they won't be drawing the plow. What are you going to reveal to me? Polluted Delta. No, I'll not reveal that. What do I actually like here? Brainstorm, obviously. Let's do some Dowser and get that Brainstorm. Let's cast a Brainstorm. We want to set up the Delver for next turn as well. Another Dowser. Do we really need another Dowser? I don't think we need another Dowser. I think we'll do it like this. Play out this Dowser. We could just... What? Why did it skip through my attack step? That's weird. Okay. I must have just clicked twice by accident. Hopefully our opponent won't finish this game on 1 life. We know we can draw the card off the top, but we should have stacked it the other way. Actually, it doesn't really matter, does it? So this will flip to the Unholy Heat. And then we mill the Unholy Heat and draw it. And we draw another Dowser. And we will Douse again. Go attacks. Perhaps this time I will even click it. A plow, sure. I'm probably just going to run us out of threats eventually. Okay, I guess we are just dowsing a little bit more. Flooded Strand. I think we have to hold up the Delver in our hand for a Force of Will, so we don't just get 4th Eorlingus out of the game. Although we did exile it, so that means they can't do any Mystic Sanctuary shenanigans if they got a second one or a way of bouncing their existing Sanctuary. I would use Force of Will to protect Murktides, I think, but not Delvers. Blue card, please. Alright, we have a Murktide Regent. That's a good one. So, let's have a look. Instant, 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 sorcery, and another instant. A Dress Down. This is going to shrink the size of our Murktide. No, that doesn't work, right? It does work. Yes. No, it's when it enters, right? Yeah. It's Doorkeeper Thrall that doesn't work on it. But our Dowsers can pump the Murktide once this Dress Down goes away. I don't believe our opponent's doing anything spooky with the Dress Down. I think it is just in there as a good control card. I'm not expecting Dreadnoughts or anything wild. A Narset Parter of Veils. Interesting. Okay, you can have that one. Let's see what they reveal here. A Brainstorm. I imagine they're going to cast that straight up. Sure. Just start cranking out some Dowsers now. We can just Unholy Heat this, and we're not really going to get many better targets. Ponder, sure. Now, we've got 20 cards left in our library. Our opponent has 37. That gives you some indication of how much card advantage we've been generating this game. Some of it's straight up card advantage, some of it has just been like milling off bad stuff. But we're still way ahead. It didn't shuffle off of that Ponder. Not sure how I feel about them not shuffling off that Ponder. I think this is worth shooting down. Douse those there, ley lines. We are losing the total amount of threats we have in our deck when we miss. Come on, deck. Give us something. That grows our Murktide. Aha, we're finally doing it. Another Dowser is probably a bit much per Delver though. We want to Douse before we attack, so it grows our creature. We get attacks. We can just fire off this Daze to bounce our Mystic Sanctuary, which is well worth doing for us. Ponder, that's not worth dazing. I wonder if our opponent's on Back to Basics or Blood Moon. It's going to be one of the two in this sideboard. They're killing our Delver. That's not the one we're trying to protect. Feels like they're trying to bait us out. Okay, so this is the one we are trying to protect. We should have bounced our... We should try to daze it first. That would have been slightly smarter. Right, let's get stuck in. Let's cast Brainstorm. See if we can set something up. Right, we can set up these two. Just douse away. Alright, our opponent has had enough of that one. Whew. Another game brought to you by your friend of mine, Leyline Dowser. Very quickly becoming one of my more favourite cards from recent sets. So, we definitely need some Pyroblasts here. That's a given. I don't think the Dazes are going to be very good, so they can get out of here. Do we want something like Blue Blast or Hydroblast just to stop our opponent's potential Blood Moon, as well as 4th Eorlingus? Hydroblast, maybe. Other things that are useful Force of Negation, and Counterbalance. These are things I am interested in. What are we looking to get rid of? The Unholy Heats can kill Planeswalkers. But is that how I want to fight those when we're bringing in Pyroblast? Probably not. That probably gives us a Counterbalance and 1 Force of Negation. I like the burn spells. I like all the cantrips, obviously. I think we just roll like this. The other option is to take this Portent and turn it into a Force. Maybe that is slightly better. All right. We'll give it a whirl like this. We're relatively close on the clock. We're slightly ahead. Which is weird because we were doing a lot more operations than our opponent because we had to click through all our Leyline Dowsers. Since I purchased my Leyline Dowsers in real life, they have gone up a great deal. All right. Our opponent's just had enough. So we got a 3-2 record here, which is, you know, not amazing. But the 2 matchups we lost were to the mirror against very competent pilots, Larson and Piao. And they, you know, they're both well-known good players. And they both won the die roll. And it pretty much came down to the die roll in how the game's played out. So I don't think we can be upset with that. I think this deck worked pretty well. So let's talk about it. At first, the Leyline Dowser didn't strike me as being super amazing because it was quite slow. And when we were on the draw in the mirrors, it did feel awkward trying to do that from behind. You kind of need to get to parity and then you can start pushing ahead. But in the back end of the league, we definitely showed how you can just run away with a game using the Dowser. We drew so many cards. It was pretty unreal. So I think we can chalk this one up as a bit of a victory for Leyline Dowser. It really shone in some of the matchups, but not in all of the matchups. What I will say is there probably is some nice synergy with Counterbalance and Leyline Dowser as well. So you can see what you've got on top and then you can mill it and just guarantee a card. Or if you know that it's not going to counter it, you can just mill that thing off. It's, you know, it's not exactly Sensei's Divining Top, but it's pretty good. I've been impressed with this every time I've played this. And I think I've got 2 more decks in my queue with Leyline Dowser. So I'm trying to space them out though, so you get like 1 a week. So you're not just like, oh, why is this guy always playing Leyline Dowsers? I like to try and mix it up. We try and play maybe 1 tempo strategy a week. We do 1 Leyline Dowser strategy a week for a little bit while I'm still playing around with this card. So, you know, we mix it up a bit. But I think this deck showed that the core of Delver is very strong. We definitely won games just because we were doing Delver stuff. But the thing we did with Dowser did give us reach in matchups where otherwise we would have been very far behind. Like that control matchup, we are just going to get pounded by that blue-white control deck most of the time. However, we drew 20 more cards than them, which is absurd. So I was certainly impressed about this in the matchups. Maybe this isn't a thing we want 4 of in the main deck. Maybe in Delver, this is more of a 3 of. And then we turn this into, I don't know, maybe another Borrower. Although that does make our Leyline Dowsers worse. Maybe this becomes possibly even a Chain Lightning. I do quite like Chain Lightnings in these sort of things. There's another Sorcery. And it's more burn. And what we did show with the Leyline Dowsers, you can just draw your whole deck and point all your burn spells at your opponent. Which is pretty cool. I think we definitely did what I wanted to do today, which was show off Leyline Dowser and show how if you stick something that's good into a Delver shell, it's probably going to be fine. And we did just that, but it wasn't just, oh, here's a good thing. It did have a lot of synergy with what we're doing with our Delirium spells and with a Murktide. In that last game, we were growing our Murktide, so instead of it being like a 4-turn clock, we could make it a 2-3-turn clock. And that is very exciting to me. This is definitely not the best place to use Leyline Dowser. I think the other lists I've brewed up are more interesting, but I saw this one in the 5-0 deck dump and wanted to give it a whirl. And yeah, it kind of went as expected. I think if we win the die roll in the 2 mirror matches, we probably win them. That's how tight I think those games were. So yeah, definitely a big thumbs up for this one. And if you haven't bought your Leyline Dowsers, what are you doing? Go and buy them. They're really cool and they're really fun, and Bowmasters doesn't ping you. All right. That's us done for today, so please remember to like and subscribe. It really does help the channel out. I've now crossed the 3,000 subscriber threshold, which is just wonderful, and I'm so happy that people are watching and enjoying Legacy, because it is the best thing you can do with Magic the Gathering. You know, even when the format, you know, when people aren't super happy with the format, it still just plays better than other formats, in my opinion. There's so much you can do, so many different avenues. It really is the best Magic has to offer. And with that, I will say thank you so much for watching, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths, as well as 3 tiers of support. A low-cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month, as well as regular articles, And lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above, as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.